We are proud to present the Discovery Lacrosse Head, an all-new and innovative lacrosse head designed for the do-it-all lacrosse player. Built for use by any player at any age looking to unlock their highest potential. The Discovery Lacrosse Head provides improved ball control, increased accuracy, and handling with our shift throat technology. Discovery's sleek and lightweight design make it the perfect choice for any player looking to unlock their elite level performance. So don't wait, join the Relax Sports team and discover your true lacrosse potential with our Discovery Lacrosse Head.
Beltway Lacrosse, proud supporter of the NABLL, wishing all the teams good luck at Nationals. Looking forward to lots more indoor and outdoor lacrosse in 2024. Beltway is the unrivaled adult lacrosse provider in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Quick salute to our players from the Cannons, Arrows, Bears, and Wild on a great summer. Hello to our college players watching from the dorms. Our NCBS division has grown rapidly. Look for more box lacrosse from the Gales, Grays, and Chesapeake Bird Dogs, driving the Beltway for the best in DMV lacrosse.
Hello, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us on this week's weekly NABLL update. We've got Scott Joyner joining us from the Maryland Arrows and one of the owners of the league and one of the board members, and Tim Semish joining us as always. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. The first time I got to meet you was actually out at Nationals. I got to ask you, how did you feel the second Nationals went?
Well, first, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And it was great meeting you out there. And you guys did a tremendous job with everything, really professional. Looking forward to being up at Lax 9 watching you guys work again. As far as nationals, I thought it went really well. Obviously, I'm just turned 50. I've been going to lacrosse tournaments since 1995, I think, was my first lacrosse tournament outside of we didn't have travel back then. And tournaments are hard. They're hard to run. There's always something you like, man, we should have done something different. But I think what we learned from the first year to what we brought to the second year, I thought we did a really good job. And of course, there are things we can work on and get better. And we will continue to do that. But I thought they went really well. And I thought it was a really good format. I think every team had a chance to get to the championship. And I think, unfortunately, I like the Wild guys, but we lose to them quite a bit. But I think the best team won, so I thought it went well.
It was your first time hopping on the mic. How'd you feel doing commentary? I feel like every time I turned around, you were commentating on a game.
Oh yeah, so Tony and we were laughing. It's definitely something you have to learn. It took us probably 5 games to get in a good rhythm. And then when when Greg stepped away, we were like back to the beginning again. We had to like find our rhythm again. So it's definitely an art. You don't realize it until you're sitting there trying to do it.
You gonna add that to the resume moving forward? Start hopping on games and stuff, or you gonna one and done?
Yeah, I'll do some games again, but I don't even know if I have a good voice for it. DJ, the guy that stepped in from the Chicago team, he had a great voice, great presence. He was a natural. I don't think I was as good as he was, so I think I'll step in as a guest here and there.
I think you did great. I tell you, Dave surprises me the most is Dave Mather. He is one of those guys, like he jumps on there and you're just like, okay, this guy sounds like he calls a lot of lacrosse games. And that's not something like when I talk to him, it's not something he's done a lot of. He's done it, but yeah, he's one of those natural guys. I love it. I think you guys did a great job. Tony is always awesome on there. He's pretty, he's pretty comical, which is nice. Tony kind of gives that little bit in, and I think what really helps though is just the lacrosse knowledge from it. Everybody seemed to really like the format as far as the playing. Everybody wasn't as burned out for the games, so like the games, I mean, for me, really Tim's game kind of kicked it off there with that going into overtime, not being able to settle it in overtime. We're going to go to a shootout. You really couldn't ask for a better ending to Saturday.
Yeah, I thought the games Saturday were a lot better. From a player standpoint, I can tell you the Friday games went by super fast. You blinked and the game was over. But I mean, I thought Scott, feel free to hop in whenever you want. I thought the format was a little bit more player friendly than year one. I feel like year one we had some guys dragging by the end of day one or day two. But I mean, I don't know how you fix that, because if you add more time, then guys start to get tired and all that. But I feel like the format was pretty good. And then I will say that I scored at the end of that overtime. That was a goal.
Right. So it's difficult. So you go back to the old days of Ocean City, Lake Placid, and Vale, and you had 16 teams. That's all they were, and you were ranked 1 through 16. If you came into the tournament new, you went to number 16, and you played the number 1 team your opening game. So that format is different. It's a tournament. Everyone's showing up to play. Our championship is different because we're bringing 10 teams in who have played together all summer from different regions, and then we can't rank them 1 through 10. It's not possible. So we can't do it that way. You have to do pool play. So really, the pool play is just to get everybody's legs under them, get all their bad plays out, let them figure out their rosters, how they want to play, and then reset. And now we're starting. This is it. The beginning of Friday night, I think it was, or Saturday morning was really the beginning of the tournament after pool play. And I think if teams just come into that mindset, like, does pool play matter? It does, but in the end, every team had a chance to get to the finals. So pool play really did not matter. It mattered more for getting your team ready to play in that final 1 through 8 bracket, or if you had to play the play-in game like the bottom 4 teams did.
Well, I mean, really, so it benefited the top 2 teams to be able to get one less game, and it didn't really punish anybody for a terrible pool play. Like, you didn't suffer if your pool play was that bad any worse than you would have if you showed up to a tournament and had to play all the games anyways. I will say 12 running minute halves, I kept all of a sudden, it was like, oh my goodness, this game's over. I can't believe it happened. Like, it flew by so fast. But no, like you said, the one big thing is, though, the teams getting to play together all year and then coming to see each other into nationals. You're starting to see some of these national rivalries. I will say, I unfortunately, hopefully next year we get where I get to watch, all the games, because I didn't get to watch the Ignite play. You guys played who is the rival? Charlotte, I heard. And then you guys tied it over there, so that must have been an amazing game to get to watch. I've tried to watch a little bit. Rich was awesome, threw it up on Instagram Live there, some of the stuff. So I've caught some bits and pieces of the games I've missed, but yeah, those kind of national rivalries. Now how long, we've kind of talked, Scott, but Westminster has taken the NABLL for the 2 times for that. But how long have your Arrows been a team? Like, how long has that been a group? I was actually quite surprised when we started talking about how much box lacrosse is in that area.
So, quick version: the Arrows were brought back to life by Scott Kneebone and Ricky Kneebone. Scotty Kneebone is a old lacrosse guy from Australia. His son Ricky was born in the States, grew up in the Baltimore area. They brought back the Arrows in the Baltimore Indoor Lacrosse League, when uh, it needed another team to fill out 6 teams one year. So the Arrows were the original professional box lacrosse team from the Maryland area back in the 1970s in the original NLL. So if people don't know much about the old box league, you had the National Lacrosse League for 2 years. It folded. Then it became the Eagle Box Lacrosse League. And then that became the MILL. The MILL was a major indoor lacrosse league brought in by if you remember the old monster truck guys, that group actually brought box lacrosse to the States. And then that became the National Lacrosse League as we know it now. So the original was, the Wave, the Thunder, I think the Saints and the Bandits, the Wings. They were all interchangeable for about 5 years between the MLL, the MILL, and the NLL, and then it kind of settled to what you have today. So the Arrows was just brought back because we needed something, and they wanted a team, and no one was using it. There was no trademark, so they brought it back. And then 3 years ago, I was approached by a lot of the guys, hey, let's have an IBLA team. And we brought the Arrows in, and then that first year, we had the Bombers. Larry Fila ran the Bombers. Larry Fila runs the Bill, and he's been around box lacrosse for a long time. And then we had the Westminster Wild formed, and then the Golden Bears formed. So year one, the IBLA, we had 4 teams right off the bat. So it was pretty easy for us to form 4 teams in that region. And then from there, we just kind of continued on. So really, Scotty Kneebone and Ricky Kneebone really started the arrows. I kind of took it over to help try to grow the youth game, and then also bring it into the NABLL and the IBLA.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were nice enough to send me an email. So essentially, break it down for me. How far is Philly from Maryland? Like, it seems like Philly, Baltimore, Maryland, it's all, I mean, I guess I'm not very geographically savvy. Like, how far of a drive are we talking about? Like, what is this encompass?
Okay, so the DMV would be, DC, Maryland, Virginia. Um, we are,
Thanks for explaining that, by the way. I've heard the DMV several times, and other than Department of Motor
yep.
Vehicles, I have not asked anybody what it stands for. So it's
So
DC.
you have Maryland, Virginia, and then you have Delmarva, which would be Delaware, Maryland. So that's like kind of the north and a little bit east part of Maryland, and that bleeds over the Chesapeake Bay into Delaware. So the DMV, we have I'm let's just use Baltimore as a center point. So Baltimore to DC is about an hour and a half with traffic. Northern Virginia, maybe the hour and a half to hour 45 with traffic. And then you have Philly is just under 2 hours from Baltimore. So in the beginning, in the 90s, Philly had a great league, the PBLA, which still exists. Boston had a league. New York had a little league for a while. DC had a league, the MABLL, the Metro Area Box Lacrosse League, and then Baltimore had a league, the Baltimore Indoor Lacrosse League, which still exists. So during that time, between the 4 leagues of the East Coast, there was anywhere between 20 to 30 teams playing box back in the mid to late 80s, mid 90s, up into the early 2000s. And then we were talking about this before the show started. That's when kids club lacrosse started. About 2001, 2, 3, kids club lacrosse for boys started, and the coaches started telling their players, "Don't play box. It's not good for you. It's bad habits." They didn't really understand it. Plus, they were trying to grow the outdoor league, their outdoor teams. So we've really lost those feeder programs, because in the heyday, now the Baltimore League only had men's leagues, but the Virginia League, the MABLL, the MABLL, on Saturdays from 7 in the morning till midnight, we had high school teams, girls playing box, and they weren't playing fully padded, but they were playing hybrid box. And then all the men's teams played all day long at one rink. So by the end of 2017, that kind of all went away. There was a small junior program still being played by Madlax. Cabell Maddox kind of took that over with Rich Hodge, but that kind of faded away. But it really, the MABLL died out in 2017, 2018. The bill went from 16 teams down now to 4. In our heyday, in the 90s, early 2000s, we had a rule: you could only have 5 pros on each team, and almost every team had 5 pros, because you had the Thunder, you had Pittsburgh, you had the Crossfire, you had the Wings, you had the Saints, you even had the Carolina, the Cobras at one point. So you had a lot of guys in the area who played box, and they used it as a warm up. And some of the Canadians would even come down right before tryouts and jump on teams and play in the bill. So it was a pretty competitive league for a long time. It just, without those high school kids playing for that 10 to 15-year window, it decimated box lacrosse on the East Coast. Now, we talked about this quickly. New York probably survived and did well because they're so close to Canada, and they have all the Indian reservations up there. So they still had box lacrosse to play, even with all these outdoor travel programs. But there were still a lot of kids playing box in the high school ranks, which kept it alive. That's why I think New York is probably the strongest area for American box lacrosse across the country. They can probably field the most teams and be the most competitive region. Even though we're a competitive region with 4 teams, I think New York could probably do 8 and be competitive.
I was gonna say, you guys took the Wild to 3 games this year, right? Because you guys played them in the final, and it was close, wasn't it? Like Wild didn't
We
walk.
took, we took them to 3 games last year, and the Bears took them to 3 games this year.
That's right.
So we're all.
I guess
We
that's
have
my
to.
point.
Yeah, we have to play perfect. The Bears and the Arrows, we have to play a perfect game. We'll beat the Wild by 1, by 2. If we're not careful, we'll end up like the Wild did to the last 2 teams in Nationals. We'll be down 10 goals. You gotta play them. They're a good team. They're beatable, but you gotta play your A game when you play them.
They hit
So
such
let me
tiny
ask you,
windows.
what do you guys do? Like, what do you? And I know Nate Glazer helps you as kind of co-GM. What do you guys do, or what are you guys planning for the off season, like to kind of hit the ground running? Because I mean, I'm sure your guys' region is just chomping at the bit to get the Wild in 2 years undefeated, but close. Like, what's
So
your guys'? I guess.
So yeah, so we're lucky. We've got the Bills about to start up. So we'll play in that, and a lot of this year actually, a couple of the teams all the players are gonna kind of disperse. So I'm actually playing on port side, and I'll have like 2 or 3 Wild guys, a couple Arrow guys, a couple guys floating around who didn't even play box in the summer. And then there'll be in the winter we'll have another league with the Maryland Lacrosse League. They do a box league, and there'll be those teams are watered down more. It's not quite a strong competition, but all the players are kind of spread out. Like Spencer Love, he has his own team in that league, so he doesn't even play with the Wild guys. The Wild guys will have their own team. Sometimes they're called Little Abners. Some of those guys sometimes they try not to use the Wild unless they're doing. Same with the Arrows. We're trying not to use it. We're trying to make it more tournament teams and just the NABLL. So we're trying to brand it a little more than we did in the past. So we're trying to hit Nashville, but it's tough. There's so much lacrosse to play in the Baltimore area. You really don't have to leave to play lacrosse. We don't have to travel to go find good lacrosse.
Yeah, it's got to make it tough for teams because, like you talk about the bill and all these local teams to convince a team to go to nationals, or to, like you said, to convince a team to travel to Nashville, and Utica does that. They've got the Yeti, and then they've got Bang City, and the only so they'll both play in Laxnigh, but with the exception of that, usually it's either a Yeti event or, like you said, if it's not an NABLL thing, they kind of do a Bang City type thing.
Yeah, you know what? It's not just box lacrosse. It's field lacrosse to like get a Baltimore team to go up to Lake Placid to play in the open or the 30 and over, or even the 40 and over it's darn near impossible. It's the guys are waiting for Ocean City, so they go to Ocean City the weekend after for as far as field goes. So the hardcore guys go, and when they go, they love it. They have a blast. And I tell everybody, listen, if you want to learn box lacrosse and you want to play, you've got to go up and play in Canada if you get a chance, and you definitely have to go up and play in Onondaga, Six Nations, Akwesasne, anywhere on the reservations. You got to go play their game their way, and just learn. You got to learn how tough you are. You got to learn how much grit you have, and you got to learn. And you get humbled a little bit. You learn. You're like, maybe I'm not as good of a lacrosse player as I thought I was, because you go up and you see some of these guys, you may be more athletic than them, and you may be a better athlete, but they're really good lacrosse players. And you're just like, you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to play up here. And you've got to go up multiple times in a row, like years in a row, or even months, to just learn how to play the game and really get an education. And then when you come back, you're a better player. That's what I try to tell all the young guys. So you look at Spallina, and you got a kid named Don Scott from Atlanta. He played with the Arrows on my junior program for a couple tournaments here and there. Those guys go up and they're playing up in Canada and just tearing it up. I think next year you're going to see another 15 to 20 really high level Division I, Division II, Division III college guys going up into Canada and playing in the junior program after what they did this year, and the amount of Instagram. Back in the day when we grew up, guys went and played in Canada, but you didn't hear about it unless you were invited or somehow you knew somebody and you got up there to play. Now you got Instagram, you got all the social media, you're seeing all this footage. It's in everybody's face, and
Founders
everybody's
Cup is on
aware of it.
YouTube, and it's honestly so
Right.
much easier to stream a box game, and I can tell you what, since I've started streaming the NABLL and Can-Am, I have not watched a field game. We've got a surprise maybe coming up for Blue Squatch in the spring. We might have some outdoor stuff I'll be talking about soon. But I tell you, it makes a lot of sense for the college guys because the summer travel teams, you're all over the place. You got to chase the tournaments down versus so like on the Indian reservations, each nation usually has a hockey rink, but they run it very similar to Canada, where you see a lot of the rest of New York, and I don't know in Maryland if it's as big of a thing, but Nashville, Tim, do any of your hockey rinks keep ice year round?
Oh yeah, ours do in Nashville. Once the Predators got popular, hockey blew up here. So there's only 4 rinks within like an hour and a half drive. So they have hockey year round. We tried to get into a rink to let us put turf over the ice. And I think they wanted something like 20 grand for the weekend because that's how much like theoretical revenue they would lose for a Friday through Sunday. So we're SOL. We're outdoors in the summer because that's the only. I mean, luckily we're covered, so we're in the shade a little bit, but we're outside. We can't get anywhere inside.
It's interesting. And Maryland, I mean, we've kind of heard a little bit about that, but you guys have a different system where your entire division plays at one facility.
Yeah, so land in Northern Virginia and DC is expensive. So there are a couple indoor rinks. They're different sizes, like 170s by 70s or 180 by 80. They're a little small, and they're booked up by soccer. If not, then they're not ideal places to play. We were lucky, and hopefully other people are listening to this around the country. Go out to your hockey rinks that have been there for a while. I'm talking the 20, 25, 30, 35-year-old barns that have been there, some of your original hockey rinks in your community. If they have the old chiller system, this is what I've learned over the years. For every month of ice time, they have to have 1 week of no ice, because if you remember the old refrigerators, the coolers on the back of refrigerators, they freeze up and they expand. So if they don't give the pipes under the concrete time to defrost, cool, warm up basically, and really go back to get rid of their expansion a little bit, they'll crack the concrete. So Columbia Ice Rink is one of the old ones. There's another one called Laurel Ice Rink. So we actually have 2 ice rinks that thaw out in the summertime for about anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, which gives us a nice window to play. So we're lucky, we play once a week. We're all within an hour and a half each other, so it makes sense. We try to keep it more community oriented instead of home and away. And we all come together, play double headers on one night, get the same officials, so it's consistent, and all hang out. A lot of us have beers afterwards in the park a lot. Sometimes we'll grill out. So it's
Yeah,
pretty
everybody's
cool.
playing against each other. You guys get to see your teams play. So like everybody in the league watches each other play all the time. It really beats or makes a more community aspect versus like upstate, and it's really different too in the upstate division too. So Thousand Islands with their smaller barn runs like a huge home program. Same with the Yeti. They run that kind of, the home games are like a big production almost, where there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, whereas you guys play it more like a pickup league, but you guys have your own teams. You meet at a set day every time, but instead of throwing sticks, everybody shows up with their jerseys. Everybody knows who you're playing on, and you can kind of keep track of it. I like that. That's
It's like a house league, basically. I mean, and all the regions are house leagues. They're just more organized. We've got a rule set. Everybody's playing by the same rules. Hopefully, we get to everyone's playing by the exact same format down the road. That's a goal. Same size goals. That's another goal. But we don't want to tax these teams and say, you've got to buy this, you've got to do this. We want to let everybody kind of be fluid and morph into what makes sense for their region, as long as everyone understands when you're in your region, you come to nationals, you're playing under this set of rules and these size goals and this format. So it's unique, and it'd be great to be like Canada, but you know what, we're not Canada, we're the US. We're American box players for the most part, mixed with some Canadians and Native Americans. So I think that's why it works. And be honest with you, I think the NLL has really changed its style of play because of the American players. And you look at the Wild, for instance, we were talking about it. the Wild play a hybrid outdoor / box lacrosse style. They've got a little bit of both. They have a lot of players who played 4 years in college, and they played good college lacrosse. High level Division III, high level Division I, and because we're lucky to have that around where we live, and a lot of those guys are from this area, so they bring a lot to the table when you don't realize it, but you got 4-year college players learning the box game, being taught by a Canadian like Joel, and and even us, we've all helped each other. We've had training camps together. I don't hide my knowledge, and they always ask questions. How's this team? What do they like? What do you think of the Paper Oaks? Because I saw them play. I like, hey, this is what I think of them. Thousand Island asked me about the Wild. I say, hey, this is what I think of the Wild. I see them play all the time. I think we should all share knowledge and continue to try to help each other grow before we get to the point where we're trying to cut each other's throats and really like, oh no, we can't help you. You're with the Wild. You're the enemy now. I don't think we're there yet. I think maybe year 6, 7, 8 of the league, we could possibly be there where we're like the NFL. We share footage and we kind of keep closed doors on what we're thinking and what we're doing, and trying to trade players. But I think right now, for us to grow this game and grow the league, the more we help each other across the country, the faster we're going to grow, the bigger we're going to be, and the better we're going to be.
Yeah,
I think we kind of that this year at Nationals. I mean, you guys were there too. I saw a lot of kind of meets of like different GMs talking. I mean, we lost to the Wheat Kings in the first round of the bracket play, and I mean, I was a little fuzzy because he put my head in the dirt. But me and Mimbo were talking for 10, 15 minutes after the game, and we were almost like exchanging notes, while they were still fresh in our brain of like, well, we did this when you guys did this, we did that when we did this. My guys were always complaining on the bench, in a good way when you guys were hitting us this way or doing that, the other. I think you're right though, Scott. I think year 6, year 7 is that sweet spot where we get to the point a little more NLL-y of, maybe we trade films and stuff like that. Other than that, we're things under wraps. But by then, who knows? We may have two levels or
Right.
2 divisions or whatnot. But it kind of depends on how the regions all kind of blossom. Because going back to your point, like upstate New York is different because they are a little more spread out. But you guys are blessed in the sense that you guys have that central location where you can all play. But then you go down the coast a little bit to like my region, and like those guys are all 4 hours away from me, 5 hours away from me. So
right.
we have to do those like round robin weekends and all that stuff. But I feel like that's kind of the beauty of the league. I had no idea you guys all shared the same rink. I thought you guys had your own individual barns.
So we tried it. So again, we're unique. So remember, everybody comes to Maryland and Delaware to play field lacrosse for the high school teams, girls and boys. We have some of the biggest tournaments in the country there. So we tried Friday nights the first year in the IBLA. It was a disaster getting officials there, getting there for traffic. Remember, so you got all these field tournaments going on. Where are you going to get your officials from? If you're an official, you're going to go do a field tournament for 2 or 3 days. You're going to make $1,500. Are you really going to give that away to go do 2 men's box lacrosse games, get yelled at the whole time, told you suck, and make maybe 110, 120 a game?
and you're running on
No,
cement.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no.
Getting yelled at by parents might be worse than getting yelled at by adults, in my opinion. But I'm not a ref. You are, so I'll take your word for it.
But we had Marty was our lead official. Marty Joyner, USA Lacrosse, and he also assigns down here at Wallowa. He brought, actually, him and I both picked 3 guys to come in and basically we're training them to be box officials. So they did all the games. Did they do like a knockout outstanding job? Not at times, no. And they even, but see, a lot of guys have to understand about officials. If you really have a truly a good official, the officials come off the floor just like you do as a player, and they're like, man, I missed that call, or should I have called that? Even at nationals, guys were coming up to me that I didn't even know. As soon as we start talking, they understand I know the game and I officiate, and they're asking, did we miss any calls that game? And I was like, well, yeah, you probably should have called these 2, or you probably would have called this. The game probably would have more at an even temperature where we're always aiming for like 70 to 80 degrees. We never wanted up at 85 or 90 because 90 is so easy to go 100. you can't back it back down once you get up there. And we obviously don't want to call it where it's 50 degrees, where you're calling everything and the guys just feel like they're so tight that they can't play and they can't be free with what they're doing. So the officials, officials really do look at it that way, especially the good ones. And you'll know who the good ones are because they'll talk to you during games. They'll say they missed a call. They'll talk to you after games, as long as you're cordial and pleasant. And it always goes back to the same thing. If you can do better, then put the stripes on and go out on the floor and do better, or on the field and do better. Otherwise, it's probably better to be quiet and just understand the official's going to call the game the way they're going to call the game, and you have to adapt your play to it. So if you got officials that call everything tight, you got to play a more cerebral game where you're not going outside the line so much. You got to, like in the championship, those guys at the Nationals in the semifinals and finals, I tell you right now, they wanted to let the teams play as much as they could. They didn't want to over officiate, and they didn't want to call things that they didn't need to. If you had a little bit of a high check, but you got one back, they let it go. If it was a dirty play, they called it. If it was egregious, they called it. But for the most part, they want to let the teams play, and they wanted to let them figure the game out. And I think they did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, and I really got to shout out all the refs, Marty especially though. Most teams don't know, most of the people that were there, they don't know that at the end of every night at Nationals, the refs, I mean, you were in the room at least one of the nights when I was still there. The refs were there a good hour to 2 hours after everyone had left the facility, and they were almost having their own like debriefing meeting. Like, yeah, there were some funny stories and some hoot and holler and
right.
Boys. But it was kind of eye-opening that first night. I was kind of doing some of the digital media stuff, and I was sitting in the room with them, and they were going back and forth of like, well, this is what I saw. And then like the other refs who weren't even watching those games, but just going off the story.
Guys coming back and asking me to see replays the next day or the next night. I had the refs.
Yep.
I had more questions from the refs to watch replays and to watch game footage than I've had from any player in the entire 2 years of the tournament, probably. Because, like you said, they were really all over it. And if they felt they missed something, I think they were kind of giving each other a hard time. So one of them would say something. The guy would usually come over and they'd be like, hey, can I take a look at this? And it was interesting
Right.
to see, though. I think that's a huge thing about having the film, though, is that everybody gets better. And so much of what I think makes the NABLL great, though, is you've got a couple of experienced guys who are spreading this knowledge out. And that goes for officials, too. And we got to be patient with some of the guys in some of the areas because, like you said, these field tournaments, you've got guys that have been doing it for years. At the end of the day, you might find a couple hockey refs, but realistically, you want a lacrosse ref to come in and learn box lacrosse versus trying to teach a hockey guy the nuance of a cross check and trying to teach him like what's a slash and what isn't, because that for me is the biggest difference with hockey and lacrosse as far as the physicality of it is any slash is automatically in hockey. They're going to call you for the most part, unless you're only hitting the stick. Whereas in box, they understand if you're going for that bottom hand or if you're just whacking that bottom hand to be a dick. Like, are you getting it because the ball's about to be there and it's a well-timed slash? Or are you just trying to beat that
Right.
guy's wrist? And that's not something you can just like tell people one day to go out and get. You gotta understand how you catch a ball, how you spin. There's a lot of things that go into reffing a game.
Yeah, and I would just say any of the GMs out there or players anywhere in box that wants to grow the game, be nice to your officials. Even if they screw up, be nice. If they're horrible and they're just not picking it up, then remember you're hiring them to come do the game. So don't hire them. Just like if anything in life, go find another official. Like Greg was saying, hockey and basketball officials tend to be the best box lacrosse officials because the games are very close to each other. So be nice to them. Bring out the guys you like who have good demeanors and can take a little bit of back and forth, and be patient with them because they're learning the game too. And believe me, even though Nationals was great, it's still probably we were senior B, maybe low level senior A Canadian box lacrosse. We weren't like just this incredible. America is not playing this incredible level of box lacrosse yet. So be patient. Sorry, Tim. Didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. You said what I was going to say, but you bridged over really quickly. So I'll say it to any officials watching or any wannabe officials out there is the rest at Nationals, and Marty, your brother, and then there's another guy, Greg Hines, the bigger guy. They're good enough. They actually de-escalate a lot of situations because they were able to speak to the players, but they also kind of give it back when the players, like, there was one time I was yelling at your brother in the Paper City game, and he looked me dead in the eye and he just yelled right back at me, and it was constructive. He wasn't just talking crap, but like,
Right.
he didn't just shell up and be like, "Oh no, this big guy is yelling at me." Like, he stood there, got on his toes, and got in my face. And it was something in the overtime game. I don't remember what it was, but like,
Yeah.
having those officials who have that thicker skin to be able to be in the game, like, we're grown men, but we still kind of get passionate about the game.
Oh yeah.
And it just having that ability, and at nationals, seeing those refs like be able to give it back to the players, I think that pays a lot of dividends, because it's actually shocking as a player when you get like yelled back at from a ref instead of then just shrugging their shoulders, moving on. Which I gotta give
without profanity or without like
yes,
you if you didn't suck, that's why you're losing. Like professionalism is the word I think you're looking for.
yeah. It was a professionalism, but like in a true box manner. Like, they could actually speak back to you in a chirpy kind of way, I guess.
Right.
Right before I did the penalty shot in the Paper City game, Marty literally drops me the ball and he goes, "Don't drop it, big fella." Thanks for coming.
Right.
That was
that's funny.
Yeah, no, I was just, that shootout to me was so cool, but the refs really being involved in the chirpage from the refs back and forth with the players. I love being closer to the action. That was one sweet thing about being on the plexiglass like that, is we're close enough that we could still hear a lot of the stuff, and we get a little bit of it with the headset. Sometimes you pick up the camera mic, but really to be able to that all that chirping out there is quite hilarious. That is definitely senior A level. I will say the chirping out there is we have some very good chirpers, and I tell you, the goalie play is something that I thought I saw a huge nobody had a bad game. Like, there was a couple guys who had a couple bad moments, but you didn't watch a game that you were just like, "Oh, this goalie's getting lit up. I feel so bad for that team." Like, it just wasn't, thankfully we didn't have that, because that always sucks. I could not imagine being a goalie. I don't have that short-term memory disorder. Like, I would just constantly be thinking of the last one and then give up every other shot after that, because I can't handle it. But where do you guys find your goalies? Like, Maryland, you guys had the youth program, but do you find you get hockey goalies, box lacrosse goalies? What do you guys come up with?
He stole one from me. I could say that.
Yeah, when Nate moved, so Nate is Nate Glaser, is it Glazer or Glasser? I always say it wrong.
I think it's Glazer.
Yes, I don't think anybody really knows. So Nate can play the floor, and Nate he's a pretty good goalie. He's probably, if you rated a goalie from 0 to 100%, he's probably in the 75 percentile to 80 percentile as a goalie. He's got a lot of experience, but he can play on the floor as a defender. We're trying to grow youth lacrosse in Baltimore, but you battle the field teams. So it's really a constant battle trying to get these kids out to play box. And to play really good box, you have to travel to play, like in Resolute or up in Onondaga. I've taken teams up there before. Lax and I, they're doing a youth tournament this year. That'll be a pretty good box lacrosse, I would imagine. So we've got high school kids that come up, and then guys that just want to come out. And this year we had a girl, Ingrid Boyum. She played at Navy 4 years, and she wanted to try out for the women's U.S. box team. So she called Nate in May. I got in touch with her, me and Nate. We got her gear. She showed up at pickups. She showed up at practice. She did some reps. She tried out for the women's team. And by the end of the summer in our region, I think you can ask any of the teams, the Wild, Charm City, or the Bears. She's legit. She can play. She's a good goalie. She was making some incredible saves. Even on the Wild guys were even like, wow, she from where she started to where she is, she's a really good goalie. Which is great. Now we have another goalie in our area, and she wants to stick with it. We've got Jackson Curtis. who just played for the U21 US team. He's been playing since he was like in 5th grade. He's played all US Boxla travel teams. He's played men's league since he was in 8th grade. He's a very, very good goalie. If he's not in the NLL in 4 years after college, I'd be very surprised. If he's not playing for the US team in 4 years in the world, I'd be very surprised. He's a very, very good goalie, and he's actually going to Lewis, which is the school down the street from Chicago, where we had nationals and where all the athletic trainers are from. So funny how lacrosse is full circle. Just random. Jackson's going there, and we were out there, and the Wild almost picked them up. If their other goalie couldn't come, they were going to pick him up for the nationals, but they didn't need him. So Brian would have liked to have him backing him up. So we're lucky. We've got guys that want to learn, and hockey is a great place for goalies to come from. Other than that, you look at like Blaze Reardon, who's a great outdoor goalie, and he runs the floor. And then you look at like Ward, he's a great outdoor goalie and a great indoor goalie. There's really, I feel like in box lacrosse, position wise, doesn't matter what you play in outdoor. You could be an attackman, but you're going to play D in indoor. You could be a D guy in outdoor, but your game just fits the offensive side of the floor. You really, that's the great thing about box is you really don't know till you get in there and you start playing where you fit. And I'm sure there's goalies out there that they could be an attackman or defender in outdoor, but they love playing box.
Edmund
So I just
Cathers scored in nationals for Collar City, and he plays goalie, and he's one of the best goalies I've ever watched play live, for the Onondaga Redhawks. And when he's on, he is on. So unfortunately, we missed one goal the entire nationals tournament, and guess who it was? The one guy I wanted to make a highlight of him scoring a goal with a sweet save. But yeah, that was really the only net snafu. Credit to Charity on that one for being able to keep the net off the camera. But that one, the net got stuck on the port, and then she went and took my roll of electrical tape and made sure that never happened again. So thankfully we didn't miss another one. But yeah, like you said, it is just so funny. Like guys that know lacrosse, you can kind of throw them around, but how different the box position is just, because of how different the game really can be.
Right.
Scott, have you ever hopped in the pipes? And I know you've been playing lacrosse for a long time. I know you've done it in the field, but have you done it in box?
I have. So back in the old days on, Saturdays when we were growing up, and especially high school, there'll always be forfeits, teams not showing up. So when I was in high school, we would stay on Saturday at the rink, and you could play 4 games in a day. You stay there all day, show up at 8 or 9 and just stay there like 5 or 6 and play 4 games, go get lunch in between, take a rest, take a nap in a parking lot. Team doesn't show up, go back in there and play, jump on a team. So yeah, sometimes we a goalie by committee, because we always had a good box league always has 2 or 3 sets of gear, so you just throw the gear on and jump in. It's tough. Marty's actually a box goalie, so that's what he always played. So it's tough. I like it. I'd like to do it again, but getting older now, so it's hard on the back from what I hear.
Yeah. I hop in net for our practices every once in a while because both of our goalies travel a hot distance, and we have that extra set of gear. And just leaning over. I mean, I know I'm taller than the average box goalie, but leaning over, getting in that position, I'm having PTSD. I grew up playing hockey goalie, so I kind of understand the angles a little bit.
Okay.
But like bending over, having your knees, kind of caved in just a little bit, and maybe that's just me because of how big my 5-hole is.
Right.
Yeah, it wears on the back, and that stuff is heavy. It's big and thick, but I feel like that's the progression of like because I mean I got old man knees, so if I want to keep playing, I'm either gonna have to just be on the bench or be a goalie because I for so much longer.
That's what Paul does. Paul will jump in net occasionally if he needs to with the pads there. It's I would rather play box goalie than field goalie, but I think it's because I'm a little smarter than most goalies, but my eyes are going to close when the ball comes at me. It's just a natural. They're going to close. I'd love to be able to act like I can tough it out and stare down, but especially if you take one off the melon, then I'd be done for the game. There's no way I'm going to be able to keep my eyes open and cover the rebound.
That's funny.
I don't know how more box goalies don't wear hockey helmets. because like I've hopped in field net before for we need a goalie for pickup, and I've hopped in net in box, and I playing hockey growing up, like if you take a puck off the dome in a hockey helmet, a goalie hockey helmet, you hardly feel it. But like if you get hit in the head with a lacrosse ball, like a pure shot, like high 80s, 90s, it doesn't feel good. I really don't understand how more guys don't wear hockey helmets.
Aren't those hockey helmets measured to their face and then molded?
Certain ones, but you can, yeah.
The NHL ones now, I watched a video on it not too long ago. They 3D model their whole face. The one I grew up, I had a basic, iTech off the shelf helmet. And I would take slap shots, high 80s, 90s, right to the forehead. You don't feel it. I mean, maybe I feel it now.
Right.
The problem
so you have
is
really
though,
bad shooters. Because you're like 6'5". How are they hitting you in the head?
Yeah.
Well, because when I was goalie, me and my brother, we both played goalie. We developed the same strategy. I'm tall enough on my knees to take away
the top
crossbar
corner
down. So I didn't have to stay up. If they were shooting, I just dropped to my knees because it took up the most. So like my head was like dead center crossbar.
Right.
That's awesome.
Funny.
Now,
Yeah,
lacrosse helmets in general, though, they don't buy a special lacrosse helmet, right? Goalie helmet for hockey is the only specified goalie helmet. I think that's what I think it's the face mask shape, honestly. Thinking about it, though, is just because it deflects so much better than like your player helmets, especially for whatever reason. You don't see any of the goalies ever wear those newer Cascades that got more shape to them. They wear, especially Warren Hill, you watch him, it looks like, I'm like, man, you take one off the dome with that flat-faced field helmet, that cannot feel good. That's literally 90 miles an hour. You're stopping with your face and your neck. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And you never see a box goalie do the old like Dominic Hasek where they wear a player helmet. I've actually been curious to see if that's ever happened, but I don't think anyone has the balls to do that. That'd be a move. Maybe at youth, kids level. Probably,
maybe we could talk Duncan into it though. Duncan has that Hasek style. He might be crazy enough. Maybe the next time I film the Northman, maybe if he makes it to Laxna, I can convince Duncan to wear a player helmet out there for us.
We can get him one of those big, thick old Yofas. Those just really, really thick ones. Remember those?
Well, that was to replace the paper thin Yofa they had, which gave me my first 2 concussions. And my mom was like, "You're never wearing one of these helmets again. They are terrible." Those first like the Yager ones, they were like, "Oh, they're so comfortable." Yeah, they didn't protect you for anything, so that was they were awful.
Yeah.
But now, Scott, have you always worn a field helmet or a hockey like box helmet? What do you prefer when you're playing box?
Mm-hmm. So that's a funny question. So since probably 98 or 99, I haven't worn a field helmet, even in outdoor. We used to take the Cascades and take the face mask off and put box face mask on the field helmets. And then since then, I've just always worn box helmets in outdoor. Especially for a while, as I feel like Cascade wasn't very protective. For a good decade, I felt like the hockey helmets were just as good, if not better. I think now you could probably say that the lacrosse helmets are better, but now you have all the hockey helmets catching up, like the React, and you've got Bauer and Warrior. I think their helmets are just as good as the field helmets now. So I always prefer the box helmet.
Have you seen the new skate helmet? Like, have you had your hands on it yet?
No, I haven't seen. No, I haven't held it yet. No.
It's basically the React with like another layer of padding in the canopy. Other than that, I think because they're owned by the same like parent company, aren't they? Cascade and Bauer.
Yes.
I think it's literally just the React with like an extra canopy of protection, and then the Cascade logo in front of it, because it's the same, like next to each other. If you took the stickers off, you would be able to tell the difference.
Right. Yeah, and I like the big thing with box helmets is you have a little better peripheral vision, especially when you're looking for the ball over your shoulder, because you don't have the visor.
Yeah.
I think that's really the big advantage. Other than that, outdoor you have the visor, so maybe it helps with the sunlight a little bit. But I think for the most part, and I think the hockey helmets are lighter.
Oh, hockey helmets are way lit.
So
Well, so I
yeah,
pretty much know what decade you're talking about, though. I think so. You're talking like the '90s into the early 2000s. So you had Lindros. A ton of money got dumped into hockey helmets for concussions because that essentially ended Eric Lindros's
yep,
what would have been an amazing career. And then they
yeah,
dumped just so much money into helmets to try to
hmm
essentially take care of that problem. And then I think everybody else caught off. Yeah, because actually I can remember my high school lacrosse helmet. So I had one of the new like concussion proof hockey helmets, and the one they gave me for
right.
high school lacrosse was like the old tie in the back, like
The old lace up
the
back
old
rack.
the old box helmet. That was
Yep.
my lacrosse helmet, and I remember thinking I was like, why can't I wear my hockey helmet? This is not doing anything. This is a terrible idea.
No, no, the back rack helmets are awful.
Yeah. That was one of our
Yeah.
greatest things. So, like I told you, we would wrap up an hour without much of a problem. We're getting pretty close to our hour point already. So a couple things we
Okay.
didn't talk about. The Frank Messner tournament. You actually educated me. So he's from Philly. Could you kind of give us a little background on that and how? I mean,
Yeah.
just through some of those
So
guys. You.
I'll give you a quick rundown of the probably some of the forefathers of box lacrosse, and then there's probably guys in New York I don't know about, but you've got Larry Fila runs the bill. He took that over for Mark Hoffman and Hunter Francis. Um, Mark Hoffman played in the NLL, or it was the MILL back in the old days of the Washington Wave and the Baltimore Thunder. So Hoffy actually still plays in the bill today. He's like in his 60s. He's still playing. So then you had Donnie West, who took over from the Eagle Box Lacrosse League and brought the Metro Area Box Lacrosse League to Northern Virginia. And what a lot of people don't understand, back when I was in high school at 87 and 91, and it wasn't a varsity sport in Northern Virginia. So Fairfax County, Loudoun County, all those schools weren't varsity yet. We had the box league in out in Manassas, Virginia, which we played summer session, fall session, winter session, and then we played spring ball high school. There was no there was no travel lacrosse, and we really didn't have summer league until 1990 in that area. So I played more box lacrosse games than I did field games by the time I graduated high school in my career. Even probably through college, I probably still played more box lacrosse games. That wasn't great box lacrosse. It was like backyard. We were watching the Bandits on TV and the Wings, uh, learning how to play from videotapes. We had no formal coaching. A couple guys here and there would float down. Steve Govett, the GM from San Diego, he played in the league for a while. Tom Corey, one of the all-time leading scorers at Syracuse, played a lot of boxing in New York. He came down. He was a coach. He played in it for a while. So all kind of different guys kind of floated through here and there. So then Frank Menchner, Frank was probably the godfather of box lacrosse in Philly. He started the PBLA, the Rizzo Rink League. If you play box lacrosse now, you've never played at Rizzo Rink. It's probably as iconic as the Memorial in Czech Republic. You should get out there and play at least one game there. It's a horrible place to play, but you're playing right under 95. When it rains, the water comes in and comes up through the floor. But it's if you've never played box there, you should go. It's like going up to Onondaga and not playing in their outdoor box. Like, you got to play there once in your life. Same with like Aquasaxony, going up to Six Nations. There's plenty of places you should go play if you've never played box lacrosse. So Frank passed about 10 years ago, and we the Czech Republic guys who run the Memorial, Frank went over, I believe, 14 times in a row, maybe 15 before he passed, and they decided to start a tournament for him, which was just played this past weekend, the Menchner Cup. So it's the Frank Menchner Cup. They wanted to give something back to him because at that point, he still may be the most. He may have the most attendance out of any player in the world for that tournament. I have 9. Couple other, I know there's a couple guys with 10. There may be a few 11s out there, maybe not. But Frank went 15 in a row. No one did that other than Frank. So it was really nice that they did that for him. So yeah,
That's
that's
a
kind
lot
of
of dedication too, though. I mean, 15 times to go
yep.
overseas like that. That is Yeah, that is, but it's
Yeah,
it's always, and like I told you, I really wanted to get a chance to talk to these guys about all these individuals you put down, because like the GMs of these teams and the guys who do all this organization, that's what helps grow the sport. We got to try to recognize these people as often as we can and make sure we say
yeah,
thank you, because without these team GMs and guys that do all this crazy stuff, or us talking about, wow, he really flew there 15 times, but it really is passion, and that's why I think the NABLL, it is so much fun to watch, because the guys are out there because they love the sport. You're not watching a guy who's out there because he's worried about getting paid. You're watching a guy who has sacrificed so much and dedicated so much to come out and play nationals. So like when you hear Brian last weekend say, it was awesome. I paid, I showed up, I played, I got to leave. It was amazing. It's like, wow, that's like
right.
the best compliment like you could pay to a league, I would imagine, is like, yes, the players are happy. They showed up, they got what they wanted, and out on with life. So I mean, congratulations there, and a huge thank you to everybody you're talking about. And this was such big news to me to find out, especially as a Northeast guy, and everybody tells me this is where Box is, to find out that you guys had, essentially an organization down there from the 70s. I'm not that smart, but I know the 70s is older than I am. So you've got over 40 years of, lacrosse, box lacrosse being played down there. So it makes a lot more sense when you start to see some of these guys that, when I watch the Wild and I'm like, how did these guys learn to play box lacrosse 2 years ago? It's like, oh, they've been playing lacrosse their whole lives. And some of them, yeah, learned to play box a couple
But
years
some of
ago.
those guys, right? So those guys, like the Wild guys, they're all younger now. Brian, the goalie, Brian Kuster, he played in the Mabel and he played in the Bill for about probably 15, 20 years. So he has the most box experience next to Joel Tinney on the Wild. Um, but without the Bill being there, the Wild guys wouldn't have been playing lacrosse until they started their team in the IBLA. But a couple of them have been playing for a couple of years in the Bill, floating around here and there in between college and stuff. And it's just like the NABLL. People know about us because you're in the box lacrosse community. Everyone who knows about the NABLL and anybody who needs to know about it already knows about it. Um, there's not you're not going to get a bunch of people going, I didn't know that existed, because that means you don't play box lacrosse. If you play box lacrosse, you know about the NABLL because we're so big and we have 37 teams across the country, and guys are seeking out that kind of level of play. In your local areas, when you move, sometimes you got to look around for it, but once they find it, it's like, oh, it's been here. I didn't know it was always here. Yep, it's always been here. It's just kind of floated away a little bit. Now it's starting to come back. Just like anything, there's ebb and flow. There's highs and there's lows. Hopefully, the Bill can make a comeback and we get back to 8 teams again. It's tough though. It's Virginia. I don't know if Virginia will recover unless we can get a facility, because there's just no place for them to play an actual box league with a good facility. That's the big problem in Virginia. We lost our two facilities we had. They both shut down after 2015. So that's why the league faded away in 2017.
Gotcha. Yeah, that really sucks. That makes things tough. So that the Bill plays all winter, because that was one thing Jobson actually asked about. Like what they were kind of doing in the area to grow box lacrosse, and then as we were talking to Brian last week, he was telling me about the Bill and everything, and I didn't want to get too far into it with him, but that plays all winter, and that's a mix of guys that play in and out of the NABLL essentially.
Yep. So the Bill, we even Sean Nadlin, head coach of Towson, he plays in the Bill. He played 10 years, 12 years for the Wings. So you've got players like that float in and out. He just doesn't play in the summertime. There's still, we could probably field one more team of box players who play in the Bill or play in the winter in the Maryland Lacrosse League's box league, that we could probably bring them in and fill out another team of box players. But there's a lot of guys just don't want to do it in the summertime. So that's why we're recruiting a lot more college kids. I had two high school kids play on the Arrows this year. Um, we have the NCBS that's really growing. I think we had two teams this year, almost three. Next year we should have four, if not five, because we're starting to grow even more with that. And it'd be nice if we can make that our junior program, even across the country. it'd be nice if we could somehow link up with NCBS and figure out how to make that work.
No, that is a cool setup. I love the fact that they've kind of got the juniors team, and like you said, so in Canada they've got the juniors and seniors system for anybody who, well, I'm not even going to explain it because if you're watching this, you probably know what the juniors and senior system is, I would say. But you know, getting that youth funneled in, I know a lot of guys who said that I'd play box in the winter, but it is one thing that we struggle for because we fight so much with hockey rinks. So you guys play on soccer facilities, is it mainly, or is it ice rinks that you guys are playing on with turf on them, or is it?
Nope, it's just kind of just like Chicago was. It's a rink with field turf
But it's
now,
the
not even
200.
AstroTurf anymore.
Is it 200 by
No,
7?
no, we play smaller. They're like 180, 185 by 80s. Now we have 5 outdoor rinks we can play on with that are concrete. But a lot of people don't like playing on it. I guess they're kind of spoiled, you'd say, or a little bit like lacrosse snobby. They want to play on turf and play inside. But the Arrows and the Wild, we practice in those outdoor rinks all summer because they're cheaper. They're only like $25-$30 an hour to rent. Where if we go inside, it's anywhere from 150 to 200 an hour to rent it.
Oh, that's a no-brainer.
So just go outside. The only thing you lose with the outdoor rinks, because they have the fence above the dashboard, is you lose the reaction of the ball off the glass.
What kind
So
of
that takes a little bit of adjustment.
what kind of fence is it though? So like Tonawanda plays with that, and like a hockey rink I played. Is it the heavier duty one where you get some, or is it just a regular chain link fence?
Just regular chain link fence coated with plastic.
Oh man, that's got to be interesting.
Yeah, it is. It dies off in the boards, and then when it rains a little bit, it gets a little wet in the corners, and so nobody's diving on the concrete because it's not smooth. It's not asphalt, but it's not smooth either.
It's not polished concrete. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's roller hockey concrete.
Gotcha. So it's meant to have a little bit of
yeah.
traction for the guys, so they're not. Yeah. Oh,
Right.
yeah. That is one thing. I mean, maybe I'll get. I love driving around and checking out the facilities. You guys are a little bit warmer in the wintertime. I need something to hang out and check out in the winter where it's warmer. So I'll have to come down and watch a couple of the games. Tim, it's definitely warmer where you are. We were down in Nashville last couple. I think it was like 2 or 3 Octobers ago, and I was very impressed with October compared to what October is for me, where we start to see snow and I'm good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good until about January down here, and then we get about a 6-week winter, and it's just ice for 6 weeks, but then it goes away.
That's like perfect.
But
yeah,
we're outdoors year round. So
that's awesome.
Tim, I think we should talk to Bear Paw and get these guys down to do some games for the Nashville tournament.
that's not a bad idea. What are you doing November 11th?
I don't know. Last time he reached out like the day before the tournament. So hopefully we get a little more notice than this one. I'll have to write it in the calendar. But yeah, no, we'll have to try to hook something up. But like I said, I knew we'd go over an hour because that's what always happens. We always go over an hour. Thanks so much, Scott, for joining us and telling us so much about the history of the box lacrosse in the Maryland area. That's my favorite part of this show. But I guess before we say goodbye, I was like you as being one of the founding members of the NABLL. How would you sum up second year versus first year and like your expectations, I guess, versus reality? Because you've got over 40 years of experience seeing this, so you really have I would say a well-balanced perspective on watching leagues.
Yeah, so honestly, the first year I felt a little I wanted to be very careful that I didn't want to be portrayed as someone who came in to take over the IBLA because that was not my goal. I just happened to be one of the older guys that guys were reaching out to, and then everything unfolded after nationals for the IBLA, and it kind of just led to let's put something together and figure it out. And we formed the board, and we kind of came to the conclusion after about, I don't know, Tim, what was it, like 12 meetings, that we should start our own league because it's just not going to happen. We can't fix it. And then we were like, holy shit, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to model this? And I think we've obviously we stumbled in the first year here and there, and I think the second year we got much better. The teams are really what helps us grow and makes it easy, because the more organized they are, the more organized we are, and it allows us to be more fluid and really deal with issues and problems and then we have the general meeting at the end of each year. So I think where we are from the first year is really good. I think we've identified some of our problems and issues and what we need to work on, and what we need to do to improve the league to make it more inclusive and really invite more teams in and really grow across the country. And I think this next year 3 and 4 are the big ones. We've always said we make it to 5, we're established. After 5 years, that's when we're really gonna really see the benefits of amateur. I guess we're not amateur, but maybe we can really call ourselves semi-pro box lacrosse in the U.S. But I don't think we can call ourselves that until we get to year 5, and we're really doing a good job. But like as owners, as GMs, and just as a whole, as the entire league together, because we can't do it without them, and they can't. I don't think they can do it without us either. So I think we're now becoming one good giant like amoeba of box lacrosse where we're ready. Guys, reach out to us, talk to us. We're here to make it better. We're here to push it forward. And hopefully a lot of you guys that are playing now, you're sitting where I am in 15 years, 20 years, you're in your 40s or 50s, and you're like, hey, we're still the team's still going, and I'm not playing anymore, but I'm helping them run it. That's what I want. That's what I want to see. A legacy.
Yeah, I love it. I think that sums it up perfectly. All right, Tim, next week, I think we're just going to have to look through highlights. I would suggest everybody sends us in what you think the goals of the tournament were. I definitely have quite a few picked out that I've got quite a few favorites of my own, I'll say. My problem is I start cutting a game and I'll see something and I stop everything I'm doing and now I make a story out of it for Instagram. That's why everybody sees the random like reels and stuff, because that means I was watching the game and I completely stopped making my highlight reel because I'm just trying to get all the whole game highlights done for everybody. And then randomly I just see something. I'm like, that's way too pretty to not clip into a nice reel and try to find a song for it, because the talent out there, I tell you, there was a lot of amazing lacrosse out there. Tim, I guess I'll let you close us off for the week, and then we'll take a word from our sponsors as we shut her down.
I don't got much to say other than Scott, thanks for being on here. I think next week, we do goals of the week, and we can kind of talk about the future of the league. Scott hit it on the head. Year 3, I think, is the big year for the league. I'm excited for it.
100%. All right. Thanks, everybody, so much for tuning in. We will see you guys next week.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Everyone at Skiffs, The Corner, and 1864 would like to wish the Thousand Island Spirits the best of luck at Nationals. It's been a blast having the team as part of our downtown family this season. Don't worry, boys. We'll keep the champagne on ice. Fans, next time you are in Alexandria Bay, New York, please visit one of these fine restaurants. Proud sponsor of the NABLL 2023 National Championship sponsor.